With it being Wednesday, today I want to put the spotlight on a woman who was truly wise, who was a God-fearing woman, and who was full of great patience with what she had to deal with. She was a woman who was caught between two stubborn-headed men on both ends of the spectrum. Both men acting foolishly, both men acting ungodly in their own way, both men who needed to learn a valuable lesson. And thankfully, each of them did learn their lesson. One man too late, one man thankfully before it was too late. But it was all because of one very special, godly woman who really intervened in this whole situation that could have ended a lot worse. And instead, she was blessed for it, along with David, who is part of this story. But the woman that we want to really highlight and focus today is that of Abigail, a woman by the name of Abigail found in 1 Samuel chapter 25, if you want to turn there with me or listen along. I'm going to be reading, I want to read this event. It's a little bit of a text here in 1 Samuel chapter 25. It's pretty much the whole chapter. I thought about just sort of skimming through it, but I'd really like to just quickly read through the account. Maybe you're already familiar with this account, or maybe not, and let's just refresh our memories or read it for the first time together to really see how all of this unfolds. And really, today's focus could be on all three of these individuals, these two men and Abigail. And we'll talk about the two men, Nabal and David. But really, I want to highlight Abigail and her role in all of this and what she does in handling this situation. So beginning in 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 2, this is after, David has actually been, kind of wandering around. Saul has tried and wanted to kill David. David has spared Saul. They sort of make up for a time, but David is still out in the wilderness with his men. Samuel has actually died at the beginning of this chapter. But it is then, as David is out in the wilderness after the death of Samuel, as David is traveling around with his men, that it says there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was the first, I like to say he was the first businessman because his business was in Carmel, or the candy man, I guess. But anyways, another preacher joke. Anyways, this man had a business in Carmel, and the man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. And she was a woman, notice what is said of her here in 1 Samuel. She was a woman of good understanding and beautiful in appearance. But the man, Nabal, was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. And so unfortunately, you have a situation where Nabal's just a nasty, evil, harsh, ugly man. But somehow he is married to Abigail, who is a woman of great understanding, of wisdom, of godliness, of patience, of great beauty. And so how a beautiful, wonderful woman like that ended up with a horrible, rotten man like that, I don't know. It doesn't say. But nevertheless, when David, as he was in the wilderness, David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, and so David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus you shall say to him who lives in prosperity, peace be to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that you have. Now I have heard that you have shearers. Your shepherds were with us, and we did not hurt them, nor is there anything missing from them all the while they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand to your servants and to your son David." So David nicely, respectfully asking for some help, for some provisions on this feast day. David, saying, hey, we, help protect your, shepherds and whatnot, and we didn't do any wrong, any harm. And so, we were just wondering if you could please share some things that we need with us. And so David's young men came. They spoke to Nabal in verse 9 and waited for his response. Then Nabal answered. In verse 10, he answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away each one from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give to men when I do not know where they are from? So Nabal basically says, no. I don't know you. I don't care about you. You're nothing to me. I'm not going to help you. And so he was not hospitable. He was not generous. He was not caring. It is true that he was a harsh and evil man. Well, when David's young men, they turned back. They went to David. They told David all these words. And David said to his men, here's David's response to Nabal. He's telling his men this. David's getting his own men ready by saying, every man gird on his sword. So every man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went with David, and 200 stayed with the supplies. Now one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he reviled them. He scorned them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them when we were in the fields. And so he goes on, the servant does, to tell Abigail, they were a wall to us both by night and day, all the time we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his households, for he is such a scoundrel that one cannot even speak to him. And so here, verse 18, Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 shades of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, go on before me. See, I am coming after you. But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. So it was as Abigail rode on the donkey that she went down under cover of the hill, and there were David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him, and he has repaid me evil for good. Now may God do so and more also to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light. So David is ready to go down and to kill Nabal and kill his servants, destroy all that he has. Nabal certainly was a mean, nasty, ugly, evil, unloving, uncaring, wicked man. But now David has let himself stoop to an evil level as well. David is offended. David is angry. So David's first thought is, all right, that's it. He's going to die. And David takes his men. He wants to kill Nabal, kill everything he has. David's angry. David's letting his anger get the best of him. David is acting foolishly. So David is ready to go down and to destroy. But Abigail, verse 23, when she saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. So she fell at his feet and said, on me, my lord, on me let this iniquity be. And please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant. Abigail is taking a huge risk. She's risking her life. Knowing David is angry, David is ready to kill all that belongs to Nabal. Who knows if he would kill her? She doesn't know that. And she comes, she says, please let not my lord regard this scoundrel Nabal. She agrees on that. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent. Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand, Now then, let your enemies and those who seek harm for my Lord be as Nabal. And now this present which your maidservant has brought to my Lord, let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God. In the lives of your enemies he shall sling out, as from the pocket of a sling. And it shall come to pass when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. Abigail does many things. One thing is she takes the blame on herself. I mean, yes, she agrees and acknowledges that Nabal is just a worthless, no good for nothing scoundrel. But Abigail takes blame on herself. And she brings a very hospitable, generous gift. And then she says that the Lord has held back David. She wants David to see that, David, this is not right for you to do. David, you cannot go in anger and avenge yourself. You've got to leave that to the Lord. And so then she speaks to David of the blessings of the Lord, that the Lord is going to bless David. That if David will keep his hand from bloodshed, from guilt, from murder, avenging himself, the Lord will bless him and raise him up and bless him as king. And then when David becomes king, Abigail says, well, then you're not going to have regrets of your foolish acts of this. You're going to look back and say, I shouldn't have killed Nabal. And so Abigail is really pleading with David, David, don't do this. This is wrong. David, trust in the Lord. Let the Lord avenge you. David, do not avenge yourself this way. And remember me, your servant. And so then, verse 32, David said to Abigail, blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed is your advice, and blessed are you because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hand. For indeed, as the Lord God of Israel lives, who has kept me back from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to me, surely by morning light no males would have been left to Nabal. So David received from her hand what she had brought him and said to her, go up in peace to your house. See, I have heeded your voice and respected your person. Now Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was holding a feast in his house like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. And so it was in the morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. When he was sober the next morning, Abigail told him all that had happened with David, and that David was going to kill him. And she stopped him. And Nabal was terrified, became like stone. Then it happened after about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. There it is. The sad end to Nabal. But the Lord took care of it. The Lord took care of the evil of Nabal, instead of David taking it into his own hands. So when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be the Lord, who has pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. For the Lord has returned the wickedness of Nabal on his own head. And David sent and proposed to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David had come to Abigail at Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, David sent us to you to ask you to become his wife. Then she arose, bowed her face to the earth, and said, here is your maidservant, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. So Abigail rose in haste, rode on a donkey, attended by 5 of her maidens, and she followed the messengers of David and became his wife. And it goes on, David had other wives, and Saul, and so on and so forth. But here, the reason we highlight Abigail is clear. You know, she was in between two men who were acting foolishly. Nabal was foolish and evil. He was uncaring, unloving. He was unhospitable. He was a wicked man, a harsh, evil man. And then you have David, who was a good man, but in this moment was not being a good man, but instead acting foolishly because of his anger, because of his pride. David wanted to, kill Nabal, take bloodshed, avenge himself, which would have been wrong for him to do. And here is Abigail, patient, stable during all of this, brave, confident, trusting God, glorifying God by her actions, trusting in the Lord. And thankfully, by Abigail's intervention, David was kept from sinning against the Lord and bringing punishment on himself. But also she patiently endured with her husband Nabal until the Lord took care of him. The Lord punished Nabal. But Abigail's the hero in this story. Especially in her saving David from a horrible wrong. And sometimes that's what we need, men and women. A lot of times men, but men and women both. When we're being irrational, when we're letting our emotions get the best of us, we need someone like Abigail to step in, to help us see the Lord and His will and His plan and the way we should act and live, and to calm us down, to remind us of what the right thing to do is. That's what Abigail did. We all need to be like Abigail, and we all need people like Abigail in our lives to help us, to guide us in the way that is pleasing to the Lord. So let's remember Abigail. Let's remember her wisdom and patience. Let's follow her example. And let's also remember that when we have people around us who are trying to help like Abigail did, we need to be willing, like David, willing to come to our senses, willing to listen, willing to see the truth, and to change our behavior and to act in a way that is pleasing to God and will glorify Him and help others. Think about these things today and each day, and God bless.